Welcome to our YouTube channel. Today, we bring you a story full of surprises and hidden angles that few people know about. Don't leave just yet. Just when you think you've figured it all out, there are fascinating and meaningful details waiting for you at the end of the video. Let's explore together and uncover the special message this video has for you. Are you ready? Let's get started. After the rifles fell silent and a widow mourned her loss, the story unfolded in court. It began in April of 1845 when Mr. James Seton crossed paths with Mr. and Mrs. Hockey. Seton, a well-off and somewhat stout gentleman with no pressing obligations, was himself married. Yet, amidst the opulent soirees and splendor of the Victorian era, he became infatuated with Mrs. Isabella Hockey, the charming wife of Lieutenant Henry Hockey of the Royal Marines. Having retired from the military after an unremarkable career, Seton had ample leisure to visit Mrs. Hockey while her husband was stationed away. At first, his attentions were subtle, escorting her on walks or lending her intriguing books. But soon, he grew bolder, casting aside pretense. "It's no use humbugging any longer," he confessed. "Do you mean to give me an opportunity or not?" He warned her of the risks he faced, for Lieutenant Hockey was sure to uncover his intentions, and dueling was still the grim tradition of men defending their honor in 19th century Europe. Though duels originated in medieval trial by combat and evolved into rituals of chivalric duty during the Renaissance, they remained dangerous affairs. The aim was less to kill and more to secure satisfaction, proving a willingness to die for one's honor. Sword duels often ended at first blood, but pistols, now the weapon of choice, frequently resulted in death. Even as monarchs outlawed the practice and intellectuals denounced it as barbaric, dueling endured, particularly among military men, fueled by the codes of honor. Seton's secretive visits to Isabella eventually drew notice. One day, a knock at the door startled him. Fearing it was Lieutenant Hockey, he panicked, but the visitor was instead a young comrade of Hockey's, Lieutenant Edward Pym. Rumors were bound to reach her husband, yet Seton pressed on. He offered Isabella a ring, proposed they flee to London, and renounced his affection for his own wife. Isabella, however, claimed she kept him at arm's length, at least until the fateful evening of May 19th at another grand ball. At the ball, Seton insisted on dancing with Isabella, and Lieutenant Hockey graciously allowed it. But when Seton later sat beside her and refused to yield his seat, Hockey confronted him, declaring, "Sir, I should like to have a few private words with you." The two withdrew to a side room, where Seton claimed his former cavalryman status made him unfit to duel a Marine. Unconvinced, Hockey escalated matters. Returning to the ballroom, he publicly denounced Seton as a scoundrel and a blackguard, even attempting to kick him. The tension reached its breaking point when Hockey vowed to horsewhip Seton if he continued to refuse a duel. The stage was set for a confrontation that would bind them both to the perilous traditions of honor and rivalry in an age not yet ready to relinquish its violent customs. The next morning, a man arrived at the Hockey's residence with an air of grim purpose. As tradition dictated, participants in a duel would appoint representatives known as seconds to handle the formalities. This man was Seton's second, delivering an official challenge to Lieutenant Hockey. A second's role was first to seek reconciliation, attempting to resolve the matter through apology or negotiation. However, with Hockey's refusal to yield, the duel had to proceed. The terms were set, the time and location agreed upon, and the man departed. Hockey, in turn, appointed young Lieutenant Pym, barely 21, as his second, a choice that might have seemed unusual, but Hockey trusted him implicitly. The two prepared for the fateful encounter, purchasing a finely crafted pair of hair-trigger pistols. That afternoon, under a brooding sky that cloaked the harbor in oppressive gray, the duelists sailed through the formless fog to a secluded, pebbled beach. There they met Seton and his second. A distance of 15 paces was agreed upon, ample space to maintain the duel's formalities while still proving deadly. The seconds carefully explained the rules before solemnly handing each duelist a pistol. Silence enveloped the scene as the men took their positions. At the command to fire, both triggers were pulled. Hockey's pistol failed to discharge, while Seaton's shot went wide. It was later speculated that Pym may have inadvertently handed Hawkeye a gun at half-cock, rendering it unusable. Regardless, the first exchange had demonstrated the courage of both men, and by tradition, honor should have been satisfied. Yet, Hawkeye demanded another round. Any respectable second might have refused such a barbaric request, but both duelists were handed their remaining pistols. The command rang out once more. Seaton fired and missed. This time, Hawkeye's shot found its mark, tearing through Seaton's hip. He collapsed to the ground, blood surging from a severed artery. As Seaton writhed in agony, Hawkeye reportedly remained composed, coolly announcing, "I'm off to France," before fleeing the scene. Whether Hawkeye and Pym truly escaped to France or hid locally remains uncertain. Meanwhile, Seaton was dragged to the Quebec hotel, where doctors fought desperately to save him. Renowned surgeon Robert Liston traveled from London to perform a grueling operation. Without anesthesia, Seaton endured the excruciating procedure as Liston cut through his swollen hip and groin to tie off the ruptured artery. Despite these efforts, the wound became infected, and 2 weeks after the duel, Seaton succumbed to his injuries. Pym was later brought to trial for aiding in what was deemed an act of murder. The defense argued that duels, though condemned by society, adhered to an ancient code of honor that compelled men to defend their reputations, even at the cost of their lives. The judge, however, reminded the court that such archaic traditions held no weight under English law, which viewed fatal duels as premeditated murder. The jury did not even retire to deliberate before delivering their verdict. After a brief deliberation, the jury declared Pym not guilty. When Henry Hawkeye stood before the court 3 months later, it took the jury only moments to reach the same verdict. Yet, the echoes of that fateful duel reverberated through the years. 6 years later, Isabella Hawkeye embroiled herself in a scandalous affair with another officer, Lieutenant Swain. By then, Captain Hawkeye must have wondered if his wife had, years prior, welcomed, or at least encouraged, the inappropriate attentions of the late Mr. Seaton. Tormented by rumors of Isabella's infidelity, Hawkeye lamented, "What is to be done? I have already sent a fellow creature before his God on this account, and am I to do it again?" By that time, dueling had all but disappeared from English society. The last fatal duel on English soil took place that same year, involving 2 French expatriates arguing over an insult about an ex-girlfriend. Hawkeye, however, chose a different path. Instead of challenging Swain, he forbade the lieutenant from visiting Isabella during his absences. Yet tension simmered. On one occasion, while Hawkeye walked with his wife, Swain boldly approached, greeted Isabella, and dismissed Hawkeye with a sneer. Enraged, Hawkeye struck Swain with his cane. Both men were arrested and court-martialed, Swain for showing contempt toward a superior officer. In the end, both were acquitted, but the damage was done. Shortly afterward, Isabella left Hawkeye, separating from him permanently. Estranged from his wife and children, Hawkeye succumbed to tuberculosis in 1859 at just 38 years old. Isabella, meanwhile, remarried a man 11 years her junior. The defense counsel at Pym's trial had described Isabella as a lady of great personal attractions, whose beauty was once the theme of every tongue. It was her allure, combined with the fiery pride of her suitors, that had driven Seaton and Hawkeye into a duel now remembered as the last fatal encounter between Englishmen on English soil. On a lighter note, I recently picked up the Apollo ring from Norum, and it might be the coolest thing I own. Its sleek, ancient design is crafted from modern hammered black and rose gold tungsten carbide, blending the past and present into something truly extraordinary. Thorum's handcrafted rings evoke history. In storytelling, whether you're after a wedding band, an anniversary ring, or just something with a fascinating story, their World War II ring is made from gunmetal gray, with an interior of M1 Garin wood that saw action during the war, while the Thor ring features Viking-inspired craftsmanship and includes fragments of the 4-billion-year-old Gibeon meteorite. Thank you for taking the time to watch today's video. If you found this story interesting and meaningful, don't forget to hit like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any exciting content coming up. Leave a comment to share your thoughts. We're eager to hear from you. See you in the upcoming videos with more unique and meaningful stories. Stay with us.